What's going on, wrestling family? Welcome back to the channel. This video is called 10 times WWE fired talent for crazy reasons. It's one thing to lose your job and your means of income and feeding your family. It's another thing to get fired for something stupid on the part of the people that hired you. But we're going to see what happened to these superstars. Before I get started, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Let's get into this.
1, 2, is this on?
Not every firing in wrestling is just, and some have come about in strange ways. Over the years, there's been numerous talent that have been unceremoniously let go. For this video, we'll provide some background
Chuck Palumbo.
as we highlight those who were unfairly dismissed, as well as those who departed in wild circumstances. Today, we list 10 wrestlers who were fired for crazy reasons. When it comes to wrestlers who were fired whilst injured, Steve Austin in WCW is perhaps the most famous example, but the case of Chuck Palumbo is probably the most cruel. Palumbo got his big singles break in 2007, when he was repackaged as a biker, a character that better reflected his real life self. Chuck later had to get shoulder surgery in 2008 that sidelined him for a month. Shortly after beginning rehab for his injury, Palumbo was asked by one of WWE's doctors to come back on the road and cut promos. Looking back now, Palumbo believes that the fact that it was the doctor calling him, instead of one of the higher-ups, should have raised concerns, as things were about to get worse. Chuck agreed to come back, but this meant he had to be let out of rehab early. Once this happened, Palumbo got a call from the head of talent relations, Johnny Ace, and you can probably guess what happens next.
He answers he goes, hey, Chuck, hey, this is Johnny Ace, and he's giggling. He's laughing.
He's giggling?
We're going to have to release you. I said, you're good, man. I said, you're slick. You're good. I laughed. I had to laugh. What else could I do? He got me.
Chuck got absolutely played here. The WWE tricked him to be let out of rehab because legally, they weren't allowed to release someone that was under a doctor's care. But now, since Palumbo had left rehab, they were able to fire him.
Screw you! That's crazy.
You're fired! Palumbo's former...
Yo, that's crazy. Because for one, you couldn't be straight. I would be upset. I can understand him being like the fact that he's mature enough to kind of laugh it off and things like that. But I can understand the frustration that the place that you work for couldn't be straightforward enough to say, hey, we don't want you here anymore. They would rather you go through rehab and go through all these hoops and things like that in order to find a roundabout way to get you fired. That is disrespectful. And then to have your guy call me and giggle on the phone about me losing my job, changing my life right now. That's crazy. And they wonder why some of these guys who get fired go crazy. And I'm not condoning like what some of these people do that harm other people. I'm not saying that's okay, but I can understand the mentality of them when stuff like this happens. Because they feel betrayed. They feel it's so many emotions that come with that.
My manager Rico was another wrestler who didn't end on great terms with WWE.
Oh yeah,
Despite
Rico.
starting his career late, Rico fit right in WWE.
Yo, I forgot about Rico. We used to call him No Dust, okay? Because he's like gold dust without the paint. Like they're probably sure you'll see what I'm talking about. You'll see what I'm talking
It was
about.
fun to watch as he went all in on his flamboyant character.
What did I tell you about doing that? Well, if you liked that one, you're gonna love this one.
Rico was never able to truly win over the boss, however. Rico was even once disrespected backstage by Vince McMahon's son, Shane.
And Shane walks right up to me and goes, you know, Rico, you're gonna be nothing but a flatbacker. Which is a job.
Despite clearly putting in the work, Rico's salary did not reflect his contributions to the company. He asked for a raise that would have seen him make $1,000 a week, which even at that was small change compared to what other talent on a similar level were making.
Well, I got released because I asked for a raise. I asked for $1,000 a week.
Over the next few years, despite his
Which is about
departure, Rico was asked to
48,000,
return twice. On both occasions, he was offered less money than he was making previously, so it was no surprise that he promptly turned the company down.
What is
I got
going
asked
on?
to come back twice. Told him no the first time and F no the second time. He pays you, then he fires you, then he brings you back for less money.
Before his release, Rico was paired on screen with Charlie Haas and Jackie Gator. Haas and Gator were a real life...
Yo, ain't no way in the world. How you gonna fire me and I'm putting in the work and then have me try to come back and get paid less for slapping other men's booty cheeks and exposing my booty cheeks to everything? Now, if Rico was into slapping other men's booty cheeks, hey, you know what? That's a whole different story. But I'm just trying to think of it in my perspective. For one, if they told me I had to do that, I wouldn't do it anyway. I wouldn't sign no contracts to do that anyway. But if he's into it, that's one thing. But that doesn't mean he's into slapping those men's butts, okay? But at the end of the day, that's pretty disrespectful. Like, it's crazy.
That got married in 2005. After just completing their honeymoon together, Haas got a call from Johnny Ace to say that both he and Jackie had been fired, as Haas revealed on Rene Dupree's Cafe de Rene podcast.
Say, I gotta let you both go. Johnny, we just got married. We just got back from our honeymoon. He goes, for better or for worse, right, guys? How do you find...
He's laughing. He's making jokes, bro.
Rene Dupree later spoke about how there may have been more to Haas and Jackie's firing, as Rene mentioned that Vince McMahon had previously made a pass at Jackie.
Oh.
in which she refused his advances. This is unsurprising given everything that would come out about Vince years later.
Vince also made a pass at Jackie, which she declined. And you see what happened once her and Charlie got married. If you don't put Vince over, he gets mad at you and takes it out on your career.
Firing someone after
That's
just
trash,
getting married
bro.
is bad.
Listen, YouTube, this is all coming from Rene Dupree. I don't know. I wasn't there. It's a high probability that it's true, but that's his idea. It's kind of like that story. I forget what story or movie that's from, where the guy wanted this woman and she was married to this guy, and she sent the woman's husband out to war to get him killed so he can have her to himself. That's pretty much what Vince McMahon allegedly did in this situation, which is trash. Which is trash, man.
Enough. But imagine being fired whilst pregnant. This is what happened to Dawn Marie in 2005. Dawn Marie was signed to WWE after working for ECW. She starred on the SmackDown brand for 3 years. After telling the office she was pregnant, Dawn was taken off the road. The company also tried to keep her from appearing at ECW One Night Stand, but Dawn fought them on this and was ultimately able to appear. Less than a month later, Johnny Ace made the call to tell Dawn Marie she was being let go. By this point, she was on maternity leave. In 2006, Dawn filed a wrongful termination suit against WWE, which reached a settlement in 2007.
I'm sorry, we're gonna have to
Oh, wow.
go because creators just don't have anything right now. And I go, whoa, just be honest. You could have sent me home, have my baby, and then come back. All those big, huge talk shows, they wanted to talk to me. I just kept telling them, no. I'm going to solve my business, because I don't believe in exposing a business.
Dawn Marie didn't appear on WWE programming again until she was seen in attendance for former ECW boss Paul Heyman's Hall of Fame speech in 2024. Joey Styles also worked for
that's crazy. You know, I noticed that every time someone was talking about this, they're on the Rene Dupree show. So this man was the Club Shay Shay before the Club Shay Shay. That's crazy.
ECW before joining WWE. Styles was far from your typical WWE style commentator and had to alter his announcing to fit in. After nearly 3 years, Styles called it quits on commentary and began working in the company's digital media department.
And I don't want this job anymore. I quit.
We would still see Joey pop up on various pieces of programming, including a Facebook Q&A in 2016. Styles spoke candidly about the WWE product and offered insight into what goes on behind the scenes. He jokingly began the video by saying how this interview might get him in trouble.
And if there's any heat to be had, for the record, it's mine, it's not Kathy.
This certainly foreshadowed what was to come, in fact. Styles said he was going to be fired because of this interview multiple times throughout it.
Well, this might be the answer that gets me fired.
Joey has always been a straight-up, honest guy, and this Q&A was no different, as Styles shared his thoughts on WWE banning the term belt.
I understand why we say title, because a belt is something that holds up your pants, but if it is used as a weapon in the ring, a title is not a physical object, so I have no problem saying championship belt.
Styles also buried his run in WWE as an announcer.
My short time on Raw, which I'm still in therapy to try to forget, and the 2 years I spent on WWE, ECW, women were just eye candy.
He called out wrestlers up and down the card for using the same moves.
Please stop doing the suicide dive. Years ago, it was special because very few people did it. Last night, Sasha Banks almost landed on her head.
Yeah, I remember this. Yeah, I remember that. That was nuts. And I remember at that time, everybody was using a suicide dive over and over, especially Seth Rollins. And I love Seth Rollins. But he was doing 2 or 3 of them every match that he was in. Every match. He's right about that, though.
If it's not special, don't do it anymore.
But fans believe the real kicker was his comments regarding Roman Reigns, who WWE were doing everything in their power to push as the top babyface, despite many fans rejecting him.
The internet fans are begging for WWE to make Roman Reigns a villain or a heel for you smart fans, and it's not happening. So obviously, no, our chairman and WWE does not cater too hard to our hardcore internet fans.
You can't deny.
And look what happened when they finally turned him heel. One of the biggest things that ever happened in his career and that happened in the history of WWE is that actually turning Roman heel. So this guy, he was talking this stuff. Wasn't he the same guy? Guys, remind me, because I don't remember. Wasn't he the same guy? Because I think he was, who said something about someone committing self-deletion. And it was either he had a joke or saying about it after a person had passed away, Or was that in enough time to where people were like, oh, that's kind of messed up. It's too soon for you to say that. Like, I forgot. It's one of the two. Let me know in the comment section. Maybe I'm getting him mixed up with somebody else.
Styles wasn't telling the truth in everything he said. It was great to see the once loose cannon on commentary saying how it is. It was just unfortunate that it ended up costing him his job.
This is so much fun, and of course people remember.
Well, they're going to remember it because it's going to be what finally got me fired.
A short time after the Q&A was posted, Styles was released.
A few people have told me they thought that you tried to get fired. Is that true or false?
No, I was not trying to get terminated.
While the video was scrubbed from WWE's socials, the WWE have rarely ever done candid interviews in this format before or since, and it's no surprise why. Styles later embarked on a brief stint in independent wrestling until he was once again fired.
Yeah, he was in Evolve, right?
This time as the announcer for Evolve. This was after Joey used the Donald Trump line to compliment the ring announcer. Political talk had been strictly forbidden by Evolve founder Gabe Sapolsky.
Yeah, Gabe was big on that.
After being dismissed for his comments here, Joey has never worked in wrestling again and has completely disappeared from the public eye. Joey Styles.
But here's the thing, even though he say that I didn't try to get myself fired, it kind of, you kind of knew that was going to happen because you kept saying it over and over and over. You said, this is going to get me fired, this is going to get me fired, this is going to get me fired. When you say that over and over, you're letting the higher ups know, I know that there's a possibility I might get fired for saying this. So I'm still going to say it anyways, and then say something else that might get me fired, then say something else, but I'm going to remind you guys that I know it could get me fired. So you kind of are giving him a reason to be like, oh yeah, let's let this guy go because he knows he can get fired from this, but he don't care.
Famously replaced Jim Ross on commentary in 2005 as the WWE looked to phase JR out, only to bring him back in a few months later. This is nothing new as the company has tried multiple times to get rid of Ross, only to realize no one can fill his shoes.
Actually, Jim Ross came back. They hate him.
I thought that was my chair. Yeah. And I really appreciate him keeping it warm for me.
By 2013, Jim
talk your
wasn't
talk,
commentating
JR.
anymore,
Talk your
but he was
talk.
still under contract. He did various bits and pieces, including hosting an all-star panel for the upcoming WWE 2K14 video game during SummerSlam weekend. JR was given a format and script to follow, but it wasn't long until it all went out the window. Jim was in good spirits as he cracked jokes.
We had a really cool panel. Most are actually sober, but not all. Can you imagine what the internet and the dirt sheets are going to say about this shit?
Yeah. I love it.
The panel centered around the new game and the 30 years of WrestleMania theme. Although anytime Ric Flair was asked the question, he would go off topic.
John Cena, in a 5-hour road trip, he'll drink 30 beers. I don't get it. He had the genetic gift. The only guy that drank more booze than me after WCW was Gene Oakland. And Gene's had 3 kidney transplants. We stole it at SummerSlam for WWE, and we stole it with that company, whatever it's called, TNA. You kidding me?
Ric Flair was on that Mad Dog 2020, bro.
Hey, no, I don't care.
Stephanie McMahon and the WWE higher-ups were livid with how the panel went. They didn't like how JR and Flair behaved. Rick was pulled from appearing at SummerSlam the next day, while for Jim, he would be released a few weeks later. Vince McMahon believed JR went on stage drunk. During a meeting between he and Vince, Ross denied this and said that he was fatigued, which caused his Bell's palsy to act up.
I wasn't drunk. I had a cocktail, but so did everybody else.
You know, Rick, unfortunately, had been drinking most of the afternoon.
I know you're going to fire me, so could you get it over with so I can make my flight back home, I said.
What a wise ass. I just didn't do a very good job of being reliable on that day, and the more I talked, the more I buried myself.
Despite this, JR still put over the video game well, and 2K were happy with how the panel went. Plus, it was very entertaining for the fans watching along. Something fans didn't find entertaining, on the other hand, was World Championship Wrestling under Vince Russo's creative. In an attempt to try and recapture the magic he had with the WWF, Russo made wholesale changes to WCW. He did this by overhauling the roster, which included getting rid of most of the international talent that had helped differentiate WCW from the competition, much to the chagrin of Sonny Ono, who was one of the people that got released.
So when Vince Russo came in, saying that he was from America, that he didn't want any Japanese or Mexican on his American TV, proceeded to terminate every Japanese talent, all the Mexicans, off TV.
Russo's comments and subsequent actions led to a discrimination suit filed against WCW by Ono. This was just one of the numerous discrimination lawsuits the company faced during this time period. Ono's lawsuit was settled for a sum believed to be in the 7-figure range. Russo had continued to say that he believes Japanese or Mexican wrestlers could never get over with US audiences. Vince also said he doesn't give a crap about seeing Japanese or Mexican wrestlers on TV and only wants to see Americans.
Most of them can't speak English. It is a hindrance to them, and it's very difficult for them to relate with American fans and vice versa.
So what did you mean by I don't give a shit about a Mexican guy? What does that mean then?
If I'm watching Raw this week
I'm not interested in Kalisto. That makes me a racist because I got no interest in Kalisto.
Speaking of Americans,
come on, Vince. Like, listen, I don't know if he's a racist or not. I can't say. I've never spoken to him in person. First and foremost, he should know all about unifying two sides because his eyebrow's been doing that for a long time. Okay, the unibrow is on full force. It's at 3,000. Okay, but at the end of the day, you can't say that because I don't like Kalisto after all the things you did. Now, if you never did something as far as firing international stars, specifically Asians and Mexicans, then people will probably give you more of, shadow of a doubt in you saying that you don't like Kalisto. But because you did what you did before, you're giving people reason to believe that you may be racist. So you can't really... And at the end of the day, just because they're a different ethnicity, just because they're a Mexican or Chinese or Asian or whatever the case may be, it doesn't mean they can't be on the roster. Because I'm sure you had American people on that roster. I know for a fact you have some people who are American on that roster who are jobbers that didn't really need to talk. So if you were worried about that, which I still think is messed up to put someone who is of another race in the jobber situation because of their race or whatever. But what I'm saying is that the excuse of not having them on your roster at all is not good enough. It never was. I remember hearing about this. It's just ridiculous, man.
Our next example's name was a combination of two.
Oh yeah, this guy, he needed to get fired. I can't even.
The reason he was fired actually relates to real life politics. We're talking about Abraham Washington, whose brief run in WWE is most remembered for his controversial departure. Whilst manager of the Prime Time Players in 2012, Washington talked trash on the outside during a match. He was mic'd up so the live crowd and television audience could hear him.
Oh
Abraham
my
would
God,
make a joke
dude.
that landed him in hot water, as he referenced the Kobe Bryant case from 2003. The announcers had to apologize for the joke after the commercial.
We would like to apologize, ladies and gentlemen, for the remarks made by AW moments ago.
Nevertheless, AW was fined $5,000.
I'll say this though, for people who are young, who wasn't around in the 90s, who didn't see stuff in the 90s, that transition from the early to mid 2000s into like that 10-year span from like probably 2005 to 2015 was weird because you had people with the old school mentality where the jokes back then were a lot more, I guess, brutal. Back in the day, back in the 90s and the early 2000s, and still making those jokes up until the later 2010s. And, they didn't know, some of them knew, but for the most part, they were so conditioned to joking like that they didn't know that they had to let off the gas a little bit once they crossed a certain time of, of the 2000s. And I think he is one of those guys who ended up doing that. But that doesn't make it any good reason for him to say what he said or an excuse for what he did. But I think a lot of people who got got fired from their jobs and got into situations publicly, a lot of it had to do with that and them like being stuck in that old school mentality of doing certain things. Now, whether you agree or disagree with those type of mentalities or not, I'm not going to argue with you about that. That's your thing. You believe it on your own. But I think that contributes with this a lot.
For the remark, but continued to make appearances on WWE TV. 11 days after the incident, Washington was released from his WWE contract, but not because of the Kobe Bryant joke. AW thinks he was actually fired because of a tweet he sent out supporting Linda McMahon's run for US Senate in Connecticut. During this campaign, Linda chose to distance herself from the WWE, meaning no one from the company was allowed to mention her in public. Fans would have understood this firing more if Washington got axed for the Kobe comment, but being let go because of showing support for Linda just rubbed people the wrong way. Perhaps it was a combination of the two, but either way, it was certainly a crazy way to exit the company.
I don't know what I was thinking that night, but maybe I saw a political commercial or something, and I just sent it out there. The next day I get the call, so it's like, uh-oh. I didn't think it was that bad, but apparently it was.
Another wrestler best known for how they departed WWE was Robbie McAllister, who wrestled as part of the Highlanders.
The Highlanders, yeah.
In 2008, during WrestleMania week, Robbie was in Florida for the show, but had absolutely nothing to do, since he was so far down on WWE's totem pole. This, coupled with the fact that he was unhappy with his place in the company, made him decide to attend a TNA show in Orlando, the same city WrestleMania was being held. Robbie was shown on camera and faced the brunt of a Johnny Ace phone call after leaving the building.
Many stars from the sports, from the entertainment world.
Dang, that cameraman is dirty, man.
I just did something I shouldn't have done, and I knew it was stupid, but fuck it, who cares?
What?
And basically, He basically says, what's one of my fucking talent doing on fucking TNA, blah, blah, blah.
Robbie wasn't actually fired straight away, but was kept around to do jobs on TV. But this is where his tag partner Rory comes into the occasion. Rory was injured at the time of the incident, so the WWE waited a few months until he was healthy, and then proceeded to fire both Highlanders.
Dang, I know Rory's salty about that because he had nothing to do with the whole situation. Can you imagine somebody that, did something stupid and both of y'all lose your job because of him? And this one I'm kind of split 50-50 on, because I get it. Going to another wrestling show shouldn't be that big of a deal. But when you talk about the business aspect of it, like if you work for Domino's, what are you doing in a Pizza Hut commercial eating their pizzas? Like what are you doing? That's fireable, because they're like, you're representing our brand and they're going to use your popularity to support whatever they got on TV. They're supposed to be the competition and you're helping them out. Even if it won't be that big, it's just, I guess it's the guidelines and the moral values of it, or the business aspect of it, that makes all the sense in the world. So I get why he got fired, but it wasn't that serious.
Scottish theme for our final entry, Rowdy Roddy Piper. Piper sensationally returned to the WWE at WrestleMania 19. He went on to have a short run with the company. That came to an abrupt end after Hot Rod appeared in a HBO piece that highlighted wrestlers whose lives ended prematurely. Piper spoke candidly about his injuries and substance abuse in wrestling.
My right hip has been titanium since December 94.
He reflected on the struggles of life after wrestling. The interview was just as sad as it was honest.
I hate it. I don't watch myself on TV. I hate that guy because I know what that guy's thinking. I know what that guy's capable of doing. I know what he's thought of. And there's nothing nice about that guy at all. That guy being you. That guy being Roddy Piper.
As fans, we see these larger-than-life personalities, not realizing the biggest battles don't happen in the ring. They occur when the red light goes off. This interview is most famous because of how Roddy eerily predicted his eventual demise.
What would you have me do at 49 when my pension plan I can't take out till I'm 65? I'm not going to make 65.
Vince McMahon appeared in the piece as well, in which he famously lashed out at the interviewer. Despite how Vince behaved here, it was Piper that got in trouble, as McMahon fired Roddy after the interview aired.
And how much of this falls on Vince McMahon's shoulders? Piper answer says right now all of it.
I never said that. And they never showed that on TV.
Like, Roddy's point of view has been one of an anti-promoter point of view all his life.
A lot of times you lash out, and that's what Roddy was doing, was lashing out. When someone says, really rotten things about your company, you're not going to welcome them with open arms. You're going to say, time for us to say goodbye.
WWE put out a statement which went as follows. To assist Piper from engaging in any self-destructive behavior, the WWE is ending any further discussion with Piper regarding a contract. The WWE sincerely hopes for Piper and his family that Roddy can find happiness. Now, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to watch our
that's some crazy stuff. There's some crazy stuff. There's stuff that should have happened, stuff shouldn't happen. Again, crazy stuff. And what Vince Russo did was really some crazy stuff, man. That's crazy. I don't know. But anyway, what do you guys think? Let me know at the end of the show or in the comment section. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate that. Salute. Peace. Have a good day.